Welcome back, Wavesa, and today I figured we would take a look in a continued direction at a unit that we covered last time that got notoriety by a very cool guy, we'll say. And he gave me inspiration for this next video. It was going to be doing the entire mass infantry Tau, but I figured just for him, we'd pull a little page out of what he was asking, and we'll take a look at how we can buff the best, well, one of the best battle line units in the game, the Kroot Carnivores. What can we attach to them to make them good, to make them more worthwhile taking? What characters can we put with them to make them that much more lethal or durable or mobile? It's funny I said it like that because there's actually 3 characters that do. Each one does one of those things very, very well. Anyways, I digress. Let's get on into it. So the Kroot Carnivores can be taken in squads of 10 to 20. And we're thinking of mostly the big blocks, the 20-man blocks, and even sometimes the 10-man blocks, but mostly 20-man because they get the most bang for buck with one character attached to it in order to get the most amount of use out of one character buffing 20 other models. So first off, we're going to take a look at the Kroot Flesh Shaper. Now, aside from the fact that this guy looks absolutely amazing, his price point is the best compared to the other Shapers that can be attached to the Kroot Carnivore Squad. He comes in at at 55 points. He has twin ritualistic blades that are twin-linked and have 4 attacks, are strength 5, weapon skill 2+, AP -1, and damage 1, which is very good because strength 5 is a nice point where you'll be wounding most infantry on 3s, and anything you'll be wounding on 4s or on 5s, you'll be getting twin links, so you'll be re-rolling everything. It's a shame that the damage isn't as high as one would like it to be, but c'est la vie. We can't always get what we like. But we are not taking him just for what he can do in melee combat because, let's be real, we're not really looking for that particularly. We're looking at what he can do for the Kroot Carnivore Squad, and that is the Ritual Butchery and the Rites of Feasting. These 2 abilities that he have are phenomenal for the Kroot. The first one, the Ritual Butchery, says, while this model is leading a unit, melee weapons equipped by models in that unit have the Sustained Hits 1 ability, which is great. It's giving you good incentive to get to grips with your opponent. And in all honesty, the Kroot melee, while better than just about everything else the Tau have to offer, is not saying much. But because the Kroot attacks are strength 4 with no AP, sure, each guy gets 2, but they're pretty weak in all honesty. So the only way that we can truly compensate for the weakness of the attacks is that we need to have a mass volume to make up for the generally weak strength and low armor penetration. It's a shame it's only in melee, but we understand this has to be the case because he's a Flesh Shaper. You're not really going to be getting your Sustained Hits 1 from range with a Flesh Shaper. He's all about cooking up the enemy and getting some real good feasting going. So it is good for a little bit more punch in melee combat. After that, there's the Rites of Feasting, which is while this model is leading unit, models in that unit have the Feel No Pain 6+ ability, which is phenomenal. We need every bit of extra durability for the Kroot. In their detachment, assuming we're in their detachment, but in general, in their detachment, this durability is phenomenal. They have their stealth, there's the 5+ invuln at range, 6+ invuln in melee, and a 6+ Feel No Pain. That is a lot of dice being cut away from the stealth, and more dice that you get to roll for saves with their invuln and with the Feel No Pain, which is really good. And if this unit destroys 1 or more enemy units in the fight phase until the end of the battle, models in the unit have the Feel No Pain 5+ ability. And we absolutely need this because the Kroot are really squishy. Any durability buff is good, and with 20 guys, every save counts. Wish it was like the old ability that made it so that they went from they have a 6+ base, and then they kill something in melee and get a 4+, instead of them getting a 5+ when they kill something in melee. But It'll still be tough to kill a lot of stuff in melee for us, so I don't know how much into play this will come. So I don't know. I think we should be fairly happy with what we're getting here, even though it's a bit of a downgrade from the prior Shaper abilities. So it really gives us the durability and gives us the extra punch in melee. I say these two definitely are all around good for the Kroot just generally. Ideally, you'd want to have one of these guys in a Kroot unit, giving them that durability and lethality buff 100%. Now after that, we have the Kroot Trail Shaper. The guy looks like a little pirate to me, with his little binocular and pointing off into the far distance. More enemies ahoy. But anyways, he comes in at 65 points, the most expensive of all the Shapers that can be attached to the Kroot. And he has, in melee, a Shaper's Blade, which is 4 attacks, hits on a 2+, strength 5, 0p, 1 damage. It's like pretty much the old Shaper's Blade. Not terribly impressive, but we're not taking him for his melee capacity. We are taking him for his trail finding and the Kroot ambush ability. The trail finding is very simple. Once per turn, when an enemy unit ends a normal move, advance, or fall back move within 9 inches of this model's unit, if this model's unit is not within engagement range of one or more enemy models, it can make a normal move of up to d6 inches, which is absolutely phenomenal. This is perfect. I remember Mordian critiquing the Kroot Scout to get onto objective because it works 100% of the time, 50% of the time, or something like that, to get the sticky on the first turn of the game. Well, with this, if you scout up and this unit straight up to it, you don't even have to anymore. You can go off at a little angle because your opponent can move guys within 9 inches of them on their first turn, and you'll be able to roll the dice and either hide them into cover, move them more aggressively onto the objective, and get those extra inches of mobility before the game even begins. So you get your scout move plus d6. So it's like you get a movement and advance off the bat of the game, assuming your opponent moves within range of your unit of Kroot with a Trail Shaper. Otherwise, this is great for hiding Kroot from enemies trying to charge them first, or get into range of guns or line of sight on them. Either way, being more aggressive to get objectives, or using it to be a bit more defensive so that you can be the first one to get the jump on the charge, or avoid getting shot altogether, are really good buffs. After that is the Kroot Ambush ability, and this is after both players have deployed their armies and determined who has the first turn. You can redeploy this model's unit and one other friendly Kroot unit. When doing so, any of those units can be placed in strategic reserves, regardless of how many units are already in strategic reserves. And this is absolutely phenomenal, because let's be real, if you're running a big old 20-man block of Kroot, sometimes the best way of having them be protected is simply not having them on the board at all. Or having your opponent put a bunch of anti-infantry stuff on one side of a board across from your Kroot, only to have them picked up and moved elsewhere. We can bait our enemies to a flank with this. We can up our durability greatly by simply not being on the field as well. Though heavily loading one flank and actually having a broad presence with 20 guys is probably good, if it is a horde spam, maybe taking them off the board if there is no cover would be a good thing as well. So you got to think about how you're deploying them, and if it's a little too obvious that you're putting them all in one spot, you're just going to pick them up and throw them somewhere else. If we took 3 of these guys, this means that we can put each 20-man Kroot squad, if we're in the Kroot detachment, we can take them as battle line, which means we could take each 20-man squad, which would be 6, all into reserves. That will be one Kroot squad that is led by a Trail Shaper, and then another Kroot squad that isn't. This is a wonderful total of 123 models that were on the board that have simply been picked up and taken away. I know we probably need a bit more board presence than that, but on that same note, it's pretty impressive. We can just completely take all of what they think they're going to be shooting at and getting off the board, or taking 123 models from one flank and heavily loading up another. Because let's be real, we know how squishy the Kroot are. As much as we love our bird boys, they can't take a punch too well, even with their stealth and their 5-up invuln. They they really get hit pretty bad in shooting. We can do some pretty insane stuff with this, though, being able to redeploy or just take our guys completely off the board. I would say he is definitely a must-have, at least one, possibly two for a must-have if you have any number of lots of Kroot coming onto the board in a Kroot detachment, or just buffing up the 20-man blocks, or even a 10-man block, getting them to run up the board so you're not throwing away so many points on quick grabbing and sticking an objective right off the bat. Now, the Kroot War Shaper is the next on the list, and he is 60 points. He's got a couple options for shooting and melee. The first one for shooting is the Dart Bow and Tri-Blade, with Anti-Infantry 3+, Assault, and Heavy. It's 24 inches, D3 attacks, D3 plus 1 attacks, 4+ ballistical skill, strength of 4, 0 AP, but 2 damage, so it's alright. After that is the Shaper's Blade, which is the same as the Trail Shaper with 4 attacks, 2+ weapon skill, strength 5, 0 AP, and 1 damage. Or instead of taking the 2 that I mentioned above, there is the Brave Stave and Prey Hook. This has lethal hits, is 4 attacks, weapon skill, 2+, strength 5, AP -1, and damage 2. I'd say a pretty good melee blender, or at least for Tau, a pretty good melee blender. Anything with armor penetration or damage 2, pretty ideal. So he has 2 abilities called the War Leader and the Root of Honor. So the War Leader has the ability of once per battle round, 1 unit from your army with this ability can be targeted with a stratagem for 0 CP, even if another unit from your army has already been targeted with that stratagem this phase, which is phenomenal. This is great. This means that you can use Command Reroll, Counteroffensive, Epic Challenge, and Ensave Bravery if someone else has already used it, and for a free cost, once per battle round, which is 5 times, I believe. If not, you get it each time someone has a turn, then it would be 10, which would be phenomenal. Great stuff here. Anyways, I digress. So, Command Reroll is great, because think if you want to make massive charges into melee. You need an extra saving throw for more OC on a point. You really need to hit, kill, or finish off an opponent for other special buffs like eating your opponents in combat. We'll get onto that a little bit more later. There's Counteroffensive, which is also phenomenal. You won't want a massive 20-man squad getting cut down before they can fight, which is great. You'll be able to punch back before your opponent can get to all your Kroot, assuming they didn't just decide to target this unit first. We can also interrupt our enemies and fight them before they get us all dead. I know Kroot aren't terribly impressive in melee, but we can hurt the right kind of enemy units, other infantry, even marine level guys sometimes, and it really can come all together with that just simply being in your back pocket and people being afraid of that and being aware of that and deciding to throw it into some Kroot, and maybe you could actually spend the CP of counteroffensive on some Krootox that just got charged, or other things that would do a bit more lethality in melee. After that, there's Epic Challenge, and this is perfect. Let's say, well, we're going to save that for a little bit later about how phenomenal Epic Challenge can be, but killing your opponent's Warlord would not be too shabby, especially with the stats that the War Shaper has. He could definitely bite the head off a couple Guardsmen or Eldar leaders. There is also Insane Bravery. This is great because our Kroot sometimes just need our Battle Shock to be passed. And it's once per battle strat, so kinda unnecessary when you look at the next ability he has, which is Root of Honor. Once per battle at the start of any phase, you can select one friendly Kroot unit that is battle shocked, and within 12 inches of this model, that unit is no longer battle shocked. This is perfect for getting us the objective game or doing any falling back without taking mortals from desperate escape. If you got 3 of these guys, you got 3 units that are straight up not battle shocked anymore. Phenomenal. And it's once per battle round too. Sounds like it works for even the unit he is leading as well. So very good ability to hold on to for clutch moments needed for getting primary or doing actions. Oh, I said once per battle round. I meant once per battle. So similarly it's like Insane Bravery, but if you have 3 of these guys here, then you can do Insane Bravery once, and then you've got 3 auto passes, which is 4 automatic Kroot units simply not having to take Battle Shock, which is great for your big 20-man bricks that might take a lot of casualties, but have good OC, so you'll be able to hold the points and be able to hold the objective and keep your guys having objective control. Now let's roll these guys all together. We're going to do the 3 different combinations of how we can combine these 3 different units. All right, because the combo can come together from 20-man squads, because 2 leaders can lead the Kroot if there are 20 of them at the start of the battle round. All right, so the first combo we're going to look at is the Flesh and Trail Shaper. What does this do for the Kroot? It is good at getting them up the board quick with the Trail Shaper's mobility, and it's also good at staying durable with the Flesh Shaper's Feel No Pain. The reaction of the Trail Shaper can make it set up so that the carnivores can always get the first charge. This ensures that they have minimal casualties for when the Flesh Shaper can get into grips with enemies, and if they kill them, thanks to the Trail Shaper's setup, the carnivores will get the better Feel No Pain, which I would have to say is a very good overall combo. After that, there is the second combo, the Trail Shaper and the War Shaper. The Trail Shaper can get the great mobility, like I was saying earlier, get into better range for charges for the Kroot. The War Shaper complements that with the free reroll of charges. The Trail Shaper can even help get the guys off the board to begin with, but pop up on later 9 inches out of any enemies. And with the free reroll from the War Shaper to get that charge going in, it will be fairly handy. I know 9 inches rerolling isn't ideal. It'd probably be better if we were just running up the board, but it's nice to come in with your full 20-man brick completely fine and doing your 9-inch rerollable charge. Not to mention, that'd be a lot for your opponent to chew through. Finally, there's the third combo, the War Shaper and the Flesh Shaper. This one, I think, is probably the best because the Flesh Shaper gives the good durability, but also the sustained hits in melee combat. This can help the War Shaper get better hits in melee as well with his hook. Now, if you combine that with the free CP for the free stratagem for 0 CP, it makes it so he can issue a special challenge to the enemy unit's character, if it has one. So he now has sustained and lethal hits in melee with Strength 5, AP-1, and a Damage 2 weapon. He kills the enemy character, then the rest of the crew get their buff of the 5+ Feel No Pain, because that character counts as his own unit. You add the Trap Well Laid, and everyone gets a boost to AP, including the characters, getting up to Strength 5, AP-2, Damage 2 with sustained and lethal hits. And all the Kroot get chain swords with their sustained hits, and Strength 4, AP-1. The good combos are everywhere. It is absolutely beautiful. This one was for you, Morty. I'm happy you suggested it. I hadn't thought of it prior. So thank you very much. But here are all the cool things that the Kroot carnivores can do with the help of their shapers. They do a very good, well-rounded job of getting them more mobility in one area, more durability, and melee punch in another, and some more general all-around versatility in keeping them on the battlefield with keeping them in line from their Battle Shock test avoidance. So overall, I'd say that these 3 guys are phenomenal. The only catch is that the Trail Shaper is really expensive, understandably, because of how much mobility he can give your units. And I think on the whole, they're pretty expensive in general because the Ethereal and the Cadre actually cost less. And the Cadre gives a base level of more shots, and the Ethereal gives the base level 5 up Feel No Pain automatically. In my humble opinion, I think they're a bit overcosted, especially for how much they don't necessarily provide. They provide yet don't provide to the Kroot in comparison to other units in other codices like, the Death Corps Marshal, who is substantially cheaper and gives, a 5+ Feel No Pain automatically to the Kriegers. So, a little bit sour, griping just a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that the Flesh Shaper could probably serve them up real quick in a nice fancy dish for his boys if they were to get to grips with the Kriegers. But I digress. That's besides the point. These guys are really good. I do wish they got a bit of a points dip with the new points that have recently come out, but we'll make a video about that in the near future. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching. I'd like to thank my patrons, the new Vivek, Samjer, Ryan Hall, David Palilio, K-Mag, Jonathan Patino, Chris F., Mark, Magnus Thrody, and created by Philip. Thank you all very much for keeping the lights on out here. I'm so sorry for taking so long on all of this. We will get so much more content out for all of you in the near future, and I hope your day goes for the greater good. God bless you all.